as you're someone who watches my videos or listens to my videos, I'm going to assume that you are somebody who is interested in the gym, goes to the gym, maybe exercises fairly frequently. Or on the flip side, if you're somebody who just listens to my audios, then I'm going to assume you're somebody that is quite insightful and thinks a lot, I guess you could say. Now, what I find crazy, something that I learned today, a friend at the gym told me about it, and it sparked some very interesting conversation. Would you believe me if I told you that around or over 50% of people don't have any form of inner dialogue or speech that happens in their mind? To the outside world, things are silent, but in their mind, they are talking, whether it be their voice, another voice, whatever it may be. I personally am somebody who has, from as early as I can remember, always had inner dialogue. I'll never forget as a kid, whenever things wouldn't go my way, or how do I put it? Yeah, whenever things wouldn't go my way, or I'd be down or angry about something, I'd just be like, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, life is just long and shit and can't be bothered. I'd always be there and say to myself, but the new FIFA comes out in like 3 months, so don't do anything stupid until then. That's the earliest recollections I personally have of inner dialogue. And I've never known a life without it as far as I can remember. So when Tom at the gym posed this to me, I was mind blown. I was like, what? Like, over 50% of people don't have any form of inner dialogue. Like, that was kind of scary to me. Initially, I was like, wait a minute, like, what? Are people just walking around like mindlessly, like zombies, just not thinking about or being aware of this person or that person they walk past, or this experience or that experience, and just being empty? And then as I pulled up and got home, before I recorded this audio, I wanted to just like read an article or two of my own to get a different perspective. And it turns out that in some cases, people who don't experience an inner dialogue, they experience things through imagery. So, for example, if you told me, this is the example I used in something I just read. If you said dog to me, what does that trigger? In me, that triggers just me to think of a dog, and almost certainly every time say to myself dog, or repeat myself dog whenever anybody's talking to me. I guess in many ways you could say that I'm either relaying what they've said to myself again, or once I've already done that, I'm then essentially speaking to myself, deciphering what and how I want to respond to that. Whereas some people, they'll have an image triggered. So you'll say dog and they'll see a dog. Some people have sound triggered. So you say dog and they'll hear a dog barking. And that's great. Like that is, I'll be honest, that's just, in a weird way, that's kind of mind blowing to me. Because I think to myself, well, that could kind of explain why there's so many different types of people in this world from a perspective of how you express yourself. I am somebody who has pretty much always expressed myself physically from a creative standpoint. And I believe that physical expression requires, well, in my experience, I can't say I believe, in my experience, physical expression has always required inner dialogue. And after conversing with Tom about it today, and another friend of ours at the gym about it today, he had spoken to a few people about it just before me. I came to the conclusion that, like, well, I was saying to Tom that you'll probably find that in a gym, it'd be more than 50% of the people would probably have an inner dialogue, because in order to get yourself here or to want to be here, to push for that extra rep, that was the example he used a lot. It's like, well, like, what are you doing at the end of your set when you're saying to yourself, all right, cool, you got one more in you, or da-da-da-da-da. You'll probably find in a gym setting that the majority of people do have an inner dialogue, because you need an element of self-talk. You need an element of, well, in our experiences, you need an element of inner dialogue in order to talk yourself through what you're doing and what you're experiencing, and to understand what you're experiencing within your body, in order to be aware. When I'm doing an RDL, for example, like I was doing today, like I'm talking to myself essentially and thinking about what muscles I'm experiencing contract and how far I have to go in order to feel my hamstrings, etc. And that, for me, is something I can't imagine being done. I can't imagine in my own head being done visually. However, I could imagine how it could work visually, because somebody would just be sitting there, picturing a hamstring elongating and then contracting, so on and so forth. Initially, I'll be honest, like when the idea was first posed to me, I found it scary. I was thinking, holy shit, are people just walking around like zombies? Like, are people actually just like mindless, just walking around with a huge chasm in their mind, just blackness, just because that's what because as somebody who has inner dialogue, if you took that inner dialogue away from me, then all I would have is a black hole. All I would have is space. And that's fucking terrifying. So it wasn't until I looked into it a little bit that it was slightly less terrifying and became way more interesting. Because now I'm like, okay, cool. Well, when I'm getting to know someone, the first thing I want to know is, how does your mind work? How does your mind tick? Do you have an inner dialogue? Do you visualize things? Do you do you paint pictures? So the example that this lady who wrote one of the articles that I read used was that she's somebody who doesn't have an inner dialogue, and she uses visuals. She has visual cues. She experiences both sound and visual cues. So she explained, which makes absolutely no sense to me, but I can't sit here and say it's wrong, but it just confuses the fuck out of me. She sat here and explained that somebody's trying to express a feeling of heartbreak to her, she'll literally see a broken heart. Like, I'm like, what the fuck? That sounds like a load of nonsense to me, but who am I to say otherwise? Because to other people, me sitting here saying, like, I talk to myself and I hear my voice on a regular from the moment I wake up, even in my dreams to an extent, that may sound crazy. And again, she was somebody who you say dog and she imagines, she hears a dog bark. Like, I'm like, what? Like, that's insane to me. But now I'm here like, okay, cool. Well, you get to know somebody new. In many ways, like, that is and would be a very important thing to learn about that person. Anybody who cares about their friendships, relationships, of all kinds, in my opinion, should be more aware about their subject, so the other person in that relationship, than they should be about themselves in that relationship. In my opinion, that's a key to developing a great relationship, a friendship, a solid one. Like, I need to know more about you in the equation that is you and me than I need to know about me in the equation that is you and me. Because, like, I should have a good understanding of who I am anyway. I should be very aware of what it is that makes me me, regardless of who or where I am. So when it comes to me and you, I need to understand you on a deeper level. I need to get to know you on a deeper level. And it goes without saying that in many ways, this is definitely going to be a new string to my bow. Because now it's like, okay, cool, I need to get a good idea of how your mind works. When I'm speaking to you, am I triggering another internal voice that works similar to mine or differently to mine? How does it work? What makes it work? Does it work all the time? Is it easily switched off? Or on the flip side, do you have no internal voice? And do you see things when I am talking to you, when we're in communication? Does my communication to you trigger sounds? Does it trigger pictures, landscapes? What does it trigger? Basically, does it trigger smells? Like, what does it trigger? And do you have internal dialogue? Because we also referred to it today in my conversation at the gym about this. About how it may actually play a part with who you find yourself gravitating towards and whose company you find yourself enjoying more than others. Is it just instinctive for us to enjoy the company of people who think like us? And is it instinctive of us to find it difficult to enjoy the company and communicate with people who don't think like us? There's so many caveats to this idea that, like, I'm so grateful for Tom exposing me to it. I know it wasn't his intention to necessarily like stimulate this kind of thought process, but like we're similarly minded people in that respect. So yeah, man, I'm so grateful for having my mind open to this today. Like, it's a really cool and fun fucking thing to think about, because as somebody who's for a very long time now not really had, I don't know how to really communicate this. So the way I said it to Tom was that I don't really perceive many of my thoughts as conceptual anymore. Conceptual thoughts being, the way he explained it to me, those thoughts that just pop into your head, like they're not in your control. They're just something that pops into your head, and boom, maybe a song, and maybe it could be anything. And I'm somebody who, I think I was like 16 when I got introduced to concepts and practices to do on a daily basis to control said conceptual thoughts, in order to make sure that you don't ever have thoughts that don't serve you. And when you're introduced to something like that from such a young age, like I said, I was 16, I'm 25 now. It's been almost 10 years since I've been practicing that. Dare I say it, like I'm no master of it. Like, I won't, even if I get to 150, I won't be a master of it. However, I'm better at it than most people that I know. And I don't really ever experience conceptual thoughts. I don't ever really experience a thought that I don't decide whether I want it to be there or not. Because one of my first practices was visualizing your thoughts as bubbles that literally just pop into your head, as like they just form, and it's a thought bubble. Like, literally, I visualize in many ways. Well, this is how I began to do. I don't use the visualization anymore, funnily enough, now that I think about it. But I used to visualize the thought that popped into my head that didn't serve me as a thought bubble that I would then say no to, and the no was essentially my pin, and I would pop that thought bubble with my pin, which is no, and I would literally speak to myself in my head and say no, and then move on and choose to think about something else. After a while, it just kind of becomes automatic, and you think a thought that doesn't serve you. And now even I'm at a point where, like, I find myself, if I'm thinking about a thought that doesn't serve me, now I'm going into why did I start thinking about that thought, and I'm taking that thought, and rather than just popping it, I have enough control over it to almost take it, pick it apart, decipher where that thought came from, why that thought reared itself, why that thought popped into my head, and attempt to essentially destroy it at the root, which funnily enough takes me on a tangent to something else that I was actually planning on speaking about today, but we'll speak about that tomorrow. Yeah, fun, man, fun, fucking really fucking fun shit to think about, and weird, like not weird, it's not weird at all if you ask me, but it's just very interesting, very insightful. Like, I'm gonna be fucking asking everybody now, like, do you have like a voice in your head that you talk to, or like do you see things in pictures? Mate, I can't wait. I can't wait, man. That's gonna be a fun fucking thing to play with. But anyway, again, if you made it this far, it's a long one. Again, I appreciate you more than you could ever imagine. Thank you very, very much for sticking it out and enjoying this journey of thoughts with me. It was I really enjoyed this one. It was fucking fun. Shout out Tom for being the spark that lit the flame of this video. Yeah, thank you again. Thank you, and I shall see you tomorrow.